Welcome, everyone. This is Our Souls Speak. We're in constellation in divine space. We convene with our souls to listen, share, and explore. Our Souls Speak, a podcast where together with our guests, we embody the soulful principles of oneness and sourceness. Welcome to this episode of Our Souls Speak. I'm pleased to introduce you to our guest today, Paul Martin Strode. Paul is a wildflower essence producer, a remote healing and plant spirit healer. Paul, welcome to this episode. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for inviting me on.
So I'm curious, when did you first discover that plants had spirits?
Oh, good question. When did I discover that plants had spirits? I think sort of officially when I started to make flower essences in 1999. But I remember when I was very young, maybe, below 10, I think I had some behavioural issues when I was a kid. I'd get some pretty hot under the collar. And my mum and dad, when I was in that place, would say, go and water the garden. And I remember watering the garden and feeling this appreciation from the plants. And of course, logic says, well, they were thirsty and you give them water. But I found great solace in that moment. And at that time, dare I say, King Charles inspired me to start speaking to, not personally, individually, but he spoke to plants when I was younger. And so I found myself at the end of my garden speaking to my little garden and my plants. And my dad would say to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing what the king does. I'm chatting to the plants. And so in a kind of naive, kind of innocent way, that developed more and more into getting more and closer to plants. Of course, I had to work from being raised a Catholic from a young age. I had to deal with the demonic aspect of how the church sees nature and paganism and shamanism. So even at an old age, when I got into making essences, there was still some fear lurking in the back of my mind about working with flowers. And it was almost a part of when working with the spirits of the flowers, it was almost an initiation to jump through those hoops of fear that were associated in and around shamanism, paganism. But once I realized that how could I ever be kicked out of heaven when I stand at the pearly white gates, if I ever get there, with flowers in my hands and ears and say, how can this be the devil's work? When these beautiful things heal so much, I realized that then I could let go of my fear and embrace more a holistic experience, a spiritual experience with plants.
So you also have a background in craniosacral therapy. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, craniosacral therapy, it comes out of cranial osteopathy, but really it comes from Native American Indians. Dr. Still in the 1890s, not a lot of osteopaths or craniosacral people will want to talk about this, but it comes out of a Native American Indian healing art. And Dr. Still in the 1890s, he was fascinated by local healing practices. So he went to hang out with them and they showed him their healing art. He then brought it back to his students. And in the 1930s, Dr. Sutherland, great technician, pulled the body apart to see what this fluctuating energy was, this rhythm, they called it. This craniosacral rhythm, because of the cerebral spinal fluid in the brain expanding and contracting with this fluid. And so I did that for many years, and I got very techie with it. I got very osteopathic with it. It gave me a very good foundation to be able to sort of push back into the allopathic world to show what you were doing. And I studied that in 97 after being introduced to it in 95 when I was in California and I was working as a receptionist in a holistic chiropractic office. And there was a cranial guy in there, and I would talk to him about what he was doing. I came home 97. I saw that the institute that I've studied with has got a place here in the UK. And so I started studying with them. You do your main basics. You work through the adult versions of craniosacral therapy and working on adults. Of course, you've got to do a lot of your own stuff. So that took a good few years to get enough experience under my belt. But by about 2001, I started my own clinic and started building that up. And then I found I was getting a bit overloaded with adults and their stuff and all of that stuff. So I thought it would be easier if I have a passion and interest with babies and horses. So I thought there'd be less baggage in that area than there is with us adults. And they say they're the two things you should never work with, is horses and kids, or animals and kids. And that then became my mainstay for work. And I specialized in working with babies with birth trauma, or anything to do with not feeding right, nightmares, dyslexia, behavioral issues, headaches, nausea, etc., etc. So I got a really good reputation with working with kids, and it's amazing working with kids, and certainly a lot less baggage. Horses, I've got a background in horses. I used to show jump, I used to live up at a stables when I was younger. I went to school with horses. So horses has been a big thing, and I thought, well, look, if I can work it with horses, babies, can I work it with horses? So I took the module, and I found, to my joy, that the horses were really getting this stuff. I remember one particular time a horse looked back at me while my hands were on its back, and I kind of got this telepathic message, like, are you doing that? I'm like, I say back to the horse, are you getting that? And there we had this lovely relationship between myself and horse. I then progressed into working with dolphins. I took a course out in Turkey in 2016. And that was a bioaquatic course to learn how to offer craniosacral therapy in the water, but with pediatric kids, autistic kids and things like that. That was extraordinary and astonishing, not only in that exposure, but what I got from the dolphin for me too. And look, there's a whole bag of stuff that we need to talk about on a different time about dolphins and captivity, etc. But so I started to work more with animals, and that healing work has now moved into remote healing work. And I find, and that's why I put that little bit in the beginning about craniosacral, the osteopathic stuff, and the clinical side, but where it's from, which is Native American Indians, is because this same rhythm that we listen to, that I've been guided by when I've done all my healing work, when I've listened to it, followed it, there's like an intelligence in the body. And it guides us and it tells us what to do. I found that, I didn't find it, actually, a lot of cranial people at the lockdown, the great pause, COVID, moved over into distant healing. And one of the colleges in London actually started to teach it. So I took the two courses, and this blooming rhythm that I've been working on human bodies and animals and kids all this time, I can feel it in my office right here. And so it opens up this whole other conversation about what is this fluid movement? And it's not a fluid movement, it's something else. Of course, in the esoteric worlds, it's the breath of life, and it expands and contracts, and it's conscious. And so from my healing work, from going from craniosacral specializing, I now can't call myself a craniosacral therapist anymore, because the very mechanism that we are taught, well, we don't know what it is. And so I've moved into the remote healing, because that is actually at its heart where it's come from and what it is. And I don't say distant, I say remote, because of the influence of remote viewing, which again is another big subject. But it's using those same techniques as the remote viewers use, that the military all set up, that the Russians and American governments plowed a lot of money into in the 1970s. And I use those same sort of techniques to do with healing. And so Spiral Bridge is the astral structure, the energetic structure. I do this is because I'm in one now, and it's a massive teepee. It's a big enough teepee for me to go lie down in, and it's rotating, and it's a spiral. And then you program that with you invite nature in to get involved in the setup of that spiral bridge as a co-creative agreement with nature, to therefore offer workshops in, to offer healing in, to make remedies in, to offer ceremony or magic in. And it's a structure, the spiral bridge, that the spiral itself links us back to our indigenous pre-Christian roots, because our ancestors used the spiral in many different ways. We don't know how, but when we enter into it and use it in this magical way, it's almost like we travel way back into our ancestral realms. And so therefore you set it up with intent, imagination, and you've got this guaranteed, backed up by nature, sacred space that when I connect to my clients, wherever they are in the world, whoever they are, and I still work with babies and horses remotely, that it gives me a clear channel of communication that's completely unadulterated. So when my client turns up in my spiral bridge, in my big teepee, it's just me and them, with all my team. And my team is very earth-based. I'm a very earth-based individual, hence working with flowers and crystals. So that's a kind of synopsis of my journey there.
Yeah, so the spiral, the channel that this channel that we're all in, and also that everything is energies, so it doesn't matter, that you can do your work remotely. You also talk about I think working with the Fae and the She. You share a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, because it's so important for us to make the bridge between ourselves and nature again. And the Fae or the Fae for me are, when I make essences, when I make remedies, plant spirit healing, in my inner vision, when I connect to the spirits of things, I see orbs of light. And so love will be this pale pink, and amethyst clearly is a purple orb. But when I started making essences, in animism, there is a diva or a plant or a spirit for everything, from the rock to air to directions. So I thought, well, is there a diva that can help me? A diva being a word, Sanskrit word for shining one, which is a term they use for describing plant spirits. So I use that as a more common term. So is there a diva that would help me teach me how to make flower essences? Because there wasn't anything formally that I'd taken. I was shown how to make essences through a healing program that I worked with and how to mass produce them. But it just so happens that when I was living in Glastonbury, I was house sitting and I was connecting to the spirits there, and this beautiful little green orb came. And we started to talk, and they said its name was Evelyn from Avalon, which I thought was quite sweet. And we sparked up this relationship. And when I moved, she and I learned how she could move through the ley lines to where I was, and our friendship developed such that she didn't need to use the ley lines to get to me, that she was with me. I say that was my relationship with her. I call her Evelyn. She's a she. She and I then made all the essences that we're going to use in the Wildflower Oracle later. She and I worked on how to make essences from the stars moving to seasons, to anything that we could, environmental. So she became my teacher, and she is from the Fae. And what I see the Fae as is the trees, the plants, the plant kingdom. And for me, they come through as green beings. So that was very much the Fae or fairies. Though when I asked the Fae what was the best way to start communicating to people about who they were, they went, stop calling us fairies. We are the Fae. It gives it gravitas. So that's the Fae, and there's a lot more to be said about that. But the she I didn't know about until I got here to Bonnie, Scotland 4 or 5 years ago, where the blue being that was behind Wildflower, the essences that I co-produce with nature, who I thought when I first connected to this blue being was the overlighting diva of communication. So I thought, well, that'd be a really good diva to connect to if I'm communicating with flowers. That being and I got so close with what we were doing. It's only in these last years that I start setting up Spiral Bridge with these blue beans that I realise that these blue beans are the she or the Siddha in Wales. And what are they? Well, what I understand is that this is only my experience of it. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm a kind of guy that goes and does something, then I read about it. And there's not much out there about the she. So these blue beings now reveal to me who are behind Wildflower, are behind the Oracle, and are behind Sparrowbridge, that they seem to be a different, I don't want to say caliber, a different aspect of nature intelligence. That the Fae sit with the plant kingdom and all that's green, but the she or the Siddha seem to be, to me, a little bit more human-like, almost like a step nearer to us than the Fae are. And they seem to be magical beings. They don't talk to me about flowers and trees and making essences like I did with Evelyn. But they talk to me about Sparrowbridge and about magic and about connecting to our pre-Christian spiritual heritage and regaining our sovereignty through our intuitive abilities. And so the she are taking me on this new journey, which is teaching people the energetic structures, the spiral bridges, so they too can amplify their communications with whoever they're connecting with, because the bridge, the spiral, seems to magnify whatever you do in there. And that's not just me saying that. That's other people experiencing it. Things happen in the environment, or can happen in the environment, when you open up a spiral bridge. So the she seem to be giving me information paralleling with the Fae to make more bridges into getting us humans and our psyche and our hearts back into that connection with nature, as we have become, through our Abrahamic religions mainly, have divorced, severed, disconnected, demonized ourselves from the mother, which is part of what the work that I do with Wildflower and the workshops that I'm coming up to, and especially Sparrowbridge. So the she, or the Siddha, seem to be really going, Paul, we need you to step up further. It's almost not let go of the commercial side of flower essences and the bottling, but almost let go of that and teach people how to connect directly to the spirit of the flowers, which is hopefully what we'll do today with the Oracle.
Well, why don't we go ahead and do that?
The majority of my essences are from Cornwall. That's where I started. Those Celtic lands of Cornwall, Wales, Ireland, and Scotland, it still holds that earth spirituality. Oh, that's great. And Greg, you experienced the she too?
Yeah, what I experienced really was in the ocean, the waves. It was like I'm not sure I connected with them in a relational way, but I observed how they were the force behind the waves. It was really powerful. It was almost like that they were feeding, they were pushing the waves. It was really quite profound. It's kind of hard to explain, but
yeah, I hear you.
Just to see that and to connect with that was pretty powerful. And so, yeah, why don't you share with us we're going to do today?
Yeah, so I call it, or I say we, because it's me and the flowers, me and the team, call it the Wildflower Oracle. So if I wind back, that I've co-produced with nature, a bunch of flower essences. You'll see them in a sec. There's 28 there. And I think on that 28, there's only 2 that Dr. Batch has, or Dr. Bach, which is honeysuckle and wild rose. When I started to make all these essences, the internet wasn't up and running. I didn't know about essences at the time. And I thought, well, if I make these essences and I'm starting to hear all these voices in my head and start to find out what all of the ingredients are from my experience, this is my journey. I'm pointing at the flowers that are down there. They'll be up on the screen in a sec. And so this is very much my journey and my healing journey, going through all of these flowers, just as a lot of producers do when they start making essences, is that they're attracted to what they need work on. So I've ended up with a whole box full of essences that I didn't know if they actually worked, because no one else is producing foxglove or moon daisy or primrose in the way that I have. And so I sat there and I thought, I can't read anything about essences. I can't read any background because I've got to try it first. I've got to see if they blooming work. I've got to see that. I can't just be selling placebo, though placebo works. I can't be peddling that. And the voices and the connection that I'm having with nature, I need to make sure that I'm not going mad and making it up. So I thought, how do I test these guys? So I put them all in a box and I take them into my clinic. And the cranial fields that we're working with, not the fluid, the cranial fields started responding favorably to certain remedies in my box that I had in my clinic. So, cut a long story short, 7 years I tried experimenting with them, putting them on the body, seeing what the body wanted, and the body's intuition started to choose which flowers that they would like. At that time, Dr. Batch and everyone else was prescribing essences and not necessarily using intuition. Through the cranial work, the hands-on healing work, the body was saying, I want this, I want that. So after 7 years of going, okay, well, look, these remedies are corresponding with certain aspects that the individual's experiencing, what else can I do to test them? So I took all of these remedies, or some of these remedies, to Dr. Emoto, messages from water. So he would freeze the water, put the essences in, freeze it, and see if the crystalline structure was influenced by the water, by the essence. I went to another guy who did aura photography, where you put your hand in and it picks up on the meridians. That was quite unstable, very colourful, very dramatic, but too unstable. But the best result was Kirlian photography. It's a certain type of photography that uses energy to to see differences in substances and the resistance. That was the best. That was the best result I had. So from that, I packaged it into Wildflower. I put money into it, got the website, started going to shows. From that process, that intuitive process that I found for 7 years in my clinic, I started to allow this intuitive bridge to happen between the remedies, the flowers, and the individual. That started to build into the Wildflower Oracle. Because you let us consult the oracle, let us go to the oracle and ask what essences do we need, as opposed to me prescribing them, but your intuition guides you. And that's what we're going to do shortly, is to key you guys, or get you guys to key into your intuition, ask a question, what do I need right here, right now? Or what flowers can help me with that issue, or that problem, or with that? Then once you're grounded, once you've got the question, what we will then do is show you this menu of flowers. And what I would encourage you all to do is to hold the question in your mind, and not, if you can, be drawn to your favorite flower, your favorite color. Actually, don't even make a choice. Just be drawn to the spirit of the flower itself. And I would really warmly encourage you to connect deeply, not just with the physical and the beauty of these things, but to the very spirit. So as you sit there and you open up to the flower menu that's coming, allow that energy to come forward as if you are receiving the choice, as opposed to you making the choice. You can choose up to 5 flowers, but it doesn't mean that 5 is any better. 1 may be good enough. So don't trip out with how many flowers do I choose. Allow that soft, intuitive process to land in your receptor service, as opposed to you reaching out and trying to figure out what's the best one for you. Allow that bridge between the Wildflower Oracle, these beautiful flowers that are lining themselves up now for us, to move through your vision into your heart, and therefore your body goes, yes, I'll choose that one. Then you remember where they are. I tell you what they are. We write them down, the names, and then I give you a little reading of those flowers pertaining to your question. If you were here with me now, I could then make up a little remedy for you and then send it out. And then it's part and parcel of then not just getting the guidance. And so this is why I feel that the Wildflower Oracles are guides, because they're guiding us through our intuition, meeting us on the bridge. That they are teachers, because the suggested flowers that come up for you will have certain meanings, and so it will give you an approach to the pertain question. And then the healing actually comes from connecting to the spirit of the flower. So the Wildflower Oracle teaches us that flowers are guides, they are teachers, and they are healers. All my adult learning of spirituality has primarily come from the flowers. The flowers have taught me all these lovely things, which we'll be able to hear later as you start choosing your bouquet, as it were.
Lovely. Lovely. What I'm hearing is that we're guided to select flowers for the constellation that's our soul speak constellation. So not individually.
No, individually.
No, but I'm being guided that we could pick it as a constellation.
Well, if we do, just remember that these guys don't mess around. It's straightforward. It can be quite to the point. And if you guys are up for that, then the Oracle is ready for that to be taken on.
Yeah, I'm just, it's about moving beyond the personal, really.
Oh, okay.
To healing constellations.
Yeah, so
I think there's two things going on here. One is a sort of an opportunity to move to healing constellations, because that's the work where a lot of us are working with at the moment, is healing within constellations on the soul and the monadic level. And of course, there are still those who are working on the individual, at the personality level, the soul extension level. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think for the purposes of for the recording, let's do it individually, because I think that's what most people will want to do. I'm being guided that for us to think about constellation wise.
Yeah, sure. And it's a much broader question, the constellation. Anyone who's in the constellation, we would need their permission to work.
Well, I'm just talking about the four of us here. So Barry, me, Greg, and Dill. So we have numerous constellations at work.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have this collective, which is our soul speak constellation.
Yeah.
Which has a mission, which has guidance, which has particular focus. Then we have other constellations that we're working in that have other missions, that other tasks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So their guides are just simply saying, this is an opportunity to think about how the plants, because our two of our other missions, probably three of our other missions, are all about connecting humanity, earth, and source.
Okay.
So as we're connecting humanity, earth, and source, the plants, very clearly, as other kingdoms do, have a role to heal in that mission that we've been called to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, that's probably complicating it too far, but let's...
No, I get it too. And this it's classic. This is so important, is when we approach the Oracle, or when we do this work, is to make sure that we fine tune exactly what we want, because it's important, if the flowers are stepping up, that we are clear with what we're doing. So just allow me to make sure I'm clear. We're looking at us five of us here as a constellation, no, forgive me. You're saying use the Wildflower Oracle to use flowers as a suggestion to see where this constellation, us working here today, may help your soul speaks work.
Yeah, it was... Well, it's not that, because you have a different mission than we four have.
But we could use what I'm getting from my team is we just I need to be clear in what I'm presenting. And if we can set it up that our intent is that all four of you choose flowers that, there'll be quite a few flowers that may pertain to what you are doing, and seeing what flowers can help. Great. That's when we can take it out of the personal. But And also just remember, the question that you guys want to ask may be personal and you don't want to share it, and that's okay. Just saying this is like my default approach, right? And so what we can do is, of course, if I know what the question is, it's going to make my job a whole lot easier. But let's say we don't need to, and if you don't want to share that, and if it's significant or relevant, we can leave it like that, as opposed to revealing, what it is that you've asked the Wildflower Oracle for, because that's personal. That's your business. My business is to be that bridge, that translator. So we could do it that way as well, that we still have it individual, but we don't have to necessarily reveal what's going on for us with the relevant question. But the very fact that we're asking and receiving flowers, it will clearly that's going to be on a personal note. So we can't kind of avoid it, but we can manage it in different ways or frame it in different ways. So it's up to you guys what you would like to do. Or even if there was just one of you.
Well, I'd like to offer something. So the question that arose for me when you asked, Paul, that felt relevant to me and then feels entirely relevant, aligned with Lorna's guidance around the constellation, was how to be as clear a channel as possible and receive support around that. And that feels, Greg, Dil, Roger, Lorna need to speak in terms of their perspective. That feels to me wholly relevant for me and wholly relevant for our constellation. Not just relevant, but important and timely and specific.
Yes. Yeah, and so we can, right? But we've got an individual, but also we've got collective. So it's up to you guys what you'd like to do. We could use that as a umbrella aspect, and that all of you then are attracted to whichever flowers that will help with that clear communication with the constellation, or if you're bringing it to an individual level. But we just need to be, when we approach the oracle, we just need to be clear. We're whittling it down, and this is all part of the process. So, but it just shows us how it's important that it is, when you are consulting the oracle, that we are clear with what it is that we're doing. So the intention is for us in approaching the oracle is to see if they have a suggestion. No one's saying it is or isn't, it's right or wrong. It's a suggestion for you guys, right? You just get drawn with regards to the appropriate question that we have, and then see which flowers that are drawn to you, and they may still apply to you individually within the group. But let's ask the oracle to make suggestions of the appropriate flowers for you as a group. And then translate it as that.
Let's do it.
So remember, you hold the intention in your mind, and not your favorite flower, not the favorite color. Just let them move towards you. You are a receiver now. You've given off the intention. You're a receiver now. So we need to share. Desktop. Okay. So I can share this. Now let me view. Right, so you guys can see a whole menu there, can you?
Yes.
Nothing else. That's it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so get yourselves in that space when you're ready, and then let me know once you have all done it, and then we'll talk about the flowers. Take your time. Let them reach to you. Everyone done there?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if I didn't want to push anybody in that direction. Okay, so shall I leave the flowers up so you can guide me with regards to what flowers that you were drawn into pertaining to your question?
Yes.
Okay, Lorna, would you like to go first?
Well, mine came in when you were talking earlier. Mine's bluebell, native English bluebell.
Bluebell. So in accordance to your question about what flowers may help you guys to express and communicate what it is that you're doing, bluebell is the ultimate flower essence for expression and communication. Bluebell adapts to any language. So if you're French, it will talk French. If you're German, it will talk German. If you have a kind of swagger or kind of twang in the way you kind of come across in life with a bit of attitude, as a bit of So does Bluebell. Bluebell seems to draw out the playful, the communicator, the talker. It was my second flower essence that I made, and when I made it, I had talking in my head like you wouldn't believe. And then I learnt about Bluebell that there's an old folklore about Bluebell, which is that if you fall asleep in a bluebell wood, you'll wake up mad. You're not waking up mad. You just listen, you can just hear all the spirits. So Bluebell is an amazing flower for communication. I would just seek caution. Maybe this is my relationship, that if I connect with Bluebell when I'm on presentations or stages, it becomes a performance. I ended up singing New York, New York the other day as I was strutting along and it was Bluebell. It got hold of me in this jovial kind of way. So Bluebell encourages us to communicate, but with fun and joy.
That's great. That's perfect. I wonder what the old folktale is. If you fall asleep in a bluebell field and you're mad already. Maybe it'll make you less mad.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, and who's next? Greg, yeah, did you choose a...
Sure. Mine is on the third row, the second from the right.
So a third row, second from the right. So it's third row down, second from the right. This is Snowdrop. Snowdrop. Snowdrop is the flower of the goddess. It is one of the first, if not the first, flower of spring in the British Isles. And, you know, when you go through winter up in wherever you are, but up in the Northern Hemisphere, you know, it comes about January, February, where you think, oh my God, you know, where have you gone, nature? Where have you gone, goddess? You know, and then the snowdrop comes out and Snowdrop says, hey, I haven't gone anywhere. You weren't abandoned. I was just sleeping, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you to remind you, to rekindle your connection with the Great Mother herself, that you weren't abandoned. That I was just sleeping. I'm always here with you. So there's hope at the end of the tunnel. There's brightness, and there is this promise of renewal of spring that Snowdrop brings us. So it's almost like, you know, in accordance with the question, it's coming out and giving birth to what you guys are doing and bringing this light out of the tunnel. And it's almost like we are the ones that felt rejected, but actually nature is showing us that we're not. And maybe through your bridging, your workshops yourself are trying to show that this connection is really there. And Snowdrop will help oil those cogs to help with inspiration and new ideas, and there's something very bright and white and light about her. But I love that fact that we were, you know, she was just sleeping. We weren't abandoned, and to rekindle our connection with our spiritual connections. Nice. That's Snowdrop.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Barry.
Yeah, so initially, my system overrode your instructions, and I was drawn to the flowers I was drawn to. And then I remembered, relayed the instruction and softened. And then the flower that wanted to let itself be known came forward. So thank you for that. That was a really special, precious gift. So it's the one two along from Greg's. It's the one in the middle of the same aisle as Greg's was in.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay. May I ask, what was your first one? Just as a...
Bluebell.
Great. Okay, good. So that's another confirmation there too. So this is Red Archangel. I take a breath when I say Red Archangel because of my own journey with Red Archangel. Is that sometimes Barry, and this is my story, I'm not saying that this is necessarily what is my story, is that I had had a lot of pressure, a lot of anger, as I said earlier, you know, when I was chucked out in the garden to water the garden to cool myself off when I was a kid. But I had a lot of pressure, a lot of anger built up inside me to the extent that I didn't quite know what to do with it. So it may not be necessarily anger, but we're looking at pressure. We're looking at pressure that builds up inside of ourselves that not necessarily we know how to handle it. And if we go through the front door, the whole thing's going to explode. It's that type of pressure. And so you kind of tend to leave it. You don't go there. You kind of brush it under the carpet and it never goes away. And so what a Red Archangel said to me, come, Paul, we're not going to go through the front door. We're going to go through the back door. And we went through the back door and we took the pressure out from the inside. And I promise you that edge of pressure for me, which was anger, has gone. I mean, it was so pressurized that I very rarely got into fisticuffs when I was a kid, because I remember feeling it then and I felt I could do some damage to somebody. Luckily I didn't, but Red Archangel came along and I don't feel that pressure anymore. So pertaining to your question, it may not necessarily be anger, but pressures that build up that not necessarily one knows how to navigate through or needs some support navigating through. And Red Archangel, like I says, is don't kick down the front door. Don't blow the blimmin' doors off. Come through the back door. And it was another way, a natural way of approaching that pressure.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, Dilraj.
I in the beginning I had I wanted to choose the yellow one in between Greg's and Barry's, actually.
How hilarious! You guys are all on the same level.
I know, and I just gravitate. Is that dandelion in the top, on the top row in the middle?
Yes, that is dandelion.
Yeah, and I gravitate towards dandelion.
So the first one is St. John's wort to the right of Red Archangel. And so that was the first one. So were you attracted to two?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so pertaining to your question, because it might have got a bit more personal now, but pertaining to your question, so those two, and it's absolutely fine to choose two, they're very much kind of on the same level. So say if we go with dandelion first. Dandelion is about potentially too much on your plate, and that's maybe parked up in the digestion aspect, and maybe relating to your work is that maybe there's a lot of things that need to be processed and they're kind of getting chopped up. Dandelion says, hey, take the weight off your shoulders. Remember the sweet smell of summer, to lighten up and to allow those parked up stuff to process. And St. John's wort is very much on that same thing. It's a hypericum, so it's really good for depression, but it's not necessarily in that way. But what it's good is for lightening up. Might have been taken all too seriously. I say that with respect because it is serious. But the flowers teach us to remind us, particularly the Fae, to lighten up, to be silly, to be joyful. Actually, it's probably one of the biggest spiritual teachings that we're not taught is how to be silly and laugh.
Yeah.
And so St. John's wort is probably the most grounding remedy I've ever made. Particularly this one. This is peripheral St. John's wort. It literally has a square stem. And when I made it, I didn't know it had a square stem until I examined it after. But lots of cube energy kept on coming in, which is for me is earth. So pertaining to your question, there is an aspect of lightening up, move through the stuff that's parked up and take that pressure off your shoulders, and to lighten up and find the joy in this process that you guys are on. And you know, I'm hearing from the Wildflower Oracle, invite us all into your space, because they feel what you do and they understand what you do. And very similar to what we're trying to do, which is to bridge ourselves back to nature. Actually, we haven't separated. We just got to remind ourselves. Anyway, that's St. John's wort starting to talk. So So that's the Wildflower Oracle. You see how it works and how it moves. And so what we would do is then, and maybe we do this, but I'm about to go away tomorrow to Bali, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. But in due course, we would then make you up a remedy of those essences, and then I would ask you, or I'd give the remedy to you, and I'd say, Dilraj, in these remedies that you've chosen and you've got it in your hand, how long do you need this for? 2 weeks. So we put that on your label. Do you need this in the morning? Do you need it in the afternoon, in the evening? And then how many drops? So what the Wildflower Oracle is doing is taking me out of it, prescribing it completely. No, it's you with the Wildflower Oracle, the plant spirit healing, have chosen your flowers and your dosage and your duration, and then we make that up and send it out to you. So that's the she. That's the she that's taught me this, and sorry, the Fae and the she. Yeah.
So can I just ask you to stop sharing the screen for a moment?
Yep, certainly.
Please, just because of the recording. Yeah, thank you. So you'd just like to say that again, please, Paul, about the she.
Yeah. So I was talking about how to make a blend up. Yep. That bit. Okay, yep. So what I would normally do now is that you guys have chosen your remedies, your flowers. Is then I would put them all into a little bottle for you. When I take the stock bottle of, say, the remedy that you're choosing, I tune into that spirit of the flower in the bottle. How many drops does Barry need of this? So I'll do that. And then I would send the bottle to you. As long as your intuitive process is you feel confident, I give you the label, I give you a little recording and say, right, hold the remedy in your hand. How long does your body feel like it needs this remedy for? So we're charging you to take responsibility with your connection with the remedy. So say it's 2 weeks, you write that on the label. Then I would encourage you to say, do you need this in the morning? Yes. How many drops? 4 drops. Okay, you write that on the label. Do you need it in the afternoon and evening? And then you ask for how many drops. And then what you've got is your minimum dosage for however long it needs to give you the flower support that is completely intuitive, that is completely connecting you, bridging you with the individual flowers themselves, because they've come forward to help you. And this is the teaching part. Just like I've gone through all of the meanings of the flowers, that's the teaching. The guide is your intuition. And then the healing is actually connecting to the spirit of the flower. It's medicine. It's healing. And this is ancient, and this is what we're trying to remind ourselves. It's not just St. John's wort. It is the spirit of St. John's wort. And the essence isn't the herbal, it is the energetic signature. It's its life force. The energetic signature is what we're taking. And they're like keys that unlock these tightnesses in our auric field. And in my remote work, the pressures or tightnesses in the auric field seem to then compact or influence the function of the cell. And there you get dis-ease. So these guys are like tonics, keys to undo these things in our auric field. They help us with our spiritual progression. And as we all keep saying, gets us rooted back to the heart of nature. Well, surely all our healing is.
Thank you so much, Paul.
My pleasure. Well, thanks for joining that, for entering into that space with the flowers. It's a beautiful way, isn't it, to communicate and to find. Oh, we could sit here for hours, and you could tell me all your problems, and you still haven't told me actually what the issue is that you need, because it's right underneath your nose. When we use intuition like this, we can't avoid it. And that's why I said we need to be careful or aware that when we approach the oracle, that we are serious and we're up, not too serious, St. John's wort says, but to allow the medicine, the healing to come really into us. Yeah.
So thank you very much for Paul for that.
Oh, well, it's the flowers that taught us.
Well, thank you, flowers. I think maybe we should just take a moment to express our gratitude and our thanks and, great joy that the flowers are here to help us. So let's just do that moment of that. Take a moment in silence to do that. How do we feel? We feel complete?
Yeah, I'm complete.
Yeah.
For now.
For now.
Mm.
In this now.
Yeah. I'm so glad to have met.
To receive more information about our guests and future events, please visit our website at oursoulspeak.com. We are one.
You all